Very few fitness influencers have emphasized inclusivity and compassion more than Scotty K. So you can imagine how shocking it was to find out he had been making fun of people for being disabled on his main account. But that was just the beginning. After posting the home address of one of his haters, Scotty's detractors unraveled a web of lies so huge that it spanned Scotty's entire life. Now, the once promising star of the fitness community has his reputation in the gutter, and it's unlikely that it will ever recover.
I've built this entire platform on inclusivity and kindness, and I lost sight of that in my own ego.
While he had already been making successful videos since mid-2024, Scotty really jump-started his online career the same way that many fitness influencers do, going after and mocking really low-hanging fruit. In his case, criticizing V-Shred. V-Shred is another fitness YouTuber who's been posting for about 10 years, and he became notorious for pushing completely baseless exercise advice. He quickly became one of the most hated people in the entire fitness community, to the point where it was very easy content to make fun of him.
One of the biggest mistakes for women who want to lose weight is eating cortisol triggering foods.
What? One of the biggest mistakes for women who want to lose weight. Cortisol? This is the problem. This is the problem.
While some people took issue with how performative Scotty's reactions to V-Shred were, he ultimately was given a pass because what he was saying was true. V-Shred himself would continue to be a motif in his content to the point where the first autofill result on YouTube for Scotty K Fitness includes V-Shred right after. During the summer of 2025, Scotty became one of the most recognizable and beloved fitness creators on all of TikTok. Whereas many people in this genre are noticed purely for how jacked they are, Scotty had a few things to set him apart. Firstly, he has a giant mustache. Secondly, he had some serious life experience. He had been deployed to Afghanistan, he was a former police officer, a former firefighter, and he had spent some time working as a bounty hunter. All of this contributed to the sort of tough guy persona his brand was built on. But at the same time, he didn't take himself too seriously. He made silly cooking videos.
We're making meat pies. Pay attention. 100 grams of white onion in the bowl. 10 grams of garlic. It's fine. Get a skillet. Lightly spray with olive oil. Sweat your veggies. Why do you suck?
And he shared the more nerdy parts of his personality, like his obsession with Fallout. It went so far that his entire home gym theme was based on the game, and there was some actual substance to his content. He placed a large focus on progressive politics and being a sort of father figure for his audience. For example, in this video, he teaches them how to shave their face.
What's up, kid? Mind if we talk? I didn't have a dad to teach me how to shave growing up. Let's talk about it. Wash your face. You may spend a long time wondering what kind of man you're supposed to be without a father to guide you. And that's okay.
One of the top comments reads, "I'm a 25-year-old man finding comfort in this. I never had a father figure and have always felt lost." Between his weight loss and fitness journey posts, as well as his collaborations with other beloved fitness creators, he exploded in popularity, reaching 4 million followers on TikTok. He was so popular, in fact, that companies began sponsoring him, including Rise, a well-known energy drink company. But Scotty had a problem on his hands. You see, if you build an audience by doing whatever that audience would want or expect you to do, you sort of lock yourself into pandering to them. Eventually, you may find yourself doing things out of your comfort zone, just for the fact that you think your audience will like you more for it. Of course, this tends to lead certain content creators into making unwise decisions. And that's how Scotty took the first step toward his ultimate downfall. As a reaction to the recent shootings involving ICE, he decided to make a video to denounce ICE, Donald Trump, and anyone who supports them, which got almost 30 million views on TikTok. While Scotty had always been somewhat left-leaning, making an outright political statement like this did come out of left field for many. Whether you agree with him or not ultimately doesn't matter. What matters is that this attracted him some level of negative attention from those who did disagree, one of them being Runvis Coaching, who brought a new piece of information about Scotty to the public.
You're clearly very amped up about what you deem an excessive response to something that was not that problematic. But if that's the case, shouldn't you be consistent with that across everything? So say somebody said you looked like a gay guy, and then you doxed him, his job, his address, and his entire family. Would that be something that was too excessive?
Runvis's claim here is obviously extremely serious, and if he hadn't provided proof, it's likely he would have had a serious problem on his hands. But as it turns out, he did have the original video of Scotty archived. Scotty opens by saying that he has no problem with receiving hateful remarks, as it's something every creator deals with. What he says he does have an issue with is homophobia. He then highlights a comment reading, "You look like the gay brother on Ozarks that gets pounded by the FBI agent." But what Scotty does next is undoubtedly over the line.
And something else you may not know is that I'm a former bounty hunter. So, Nate, welcome to Real Life Consequences. Your middle name is... You were born in September of... The last 4 digits of your phone number are... You're a journeyman welder at your UA local... You've been there since February... And hey, that's some pretty good money, which probably is how you afforded that 3-bed, 2-bath house off of... right across from the... where your HOA dues are around $264 a month. It's pretty pricey.
This video is titled Real Life Consequences, a phrase that would soon become bitterly ironic. The fact that a simple mean comment was enough for him to post the address of this commenter, where the man's children also live, was seen as a few steps too far. While it's not exactly a call to action, Scotty did have a lot of followers to whom he broadcast all of this guy's information, as he simultaneously calls him a homophobe. And the worst part is that, although this is the most high-profile instance of Scotty doxing someone, it wasn't the only time he had done it. During that same month, January of 2026, just a few days later, someone in his comment section said, "All that mustache and still uses pronouns," with a clown emoji. Scotty responded, firing back with an insult at first. But 14 minutes later, he posted this commenter's full name, along with even more information. "Found you, paralyzed from the chest down with a failed YouTube and an obsession with four-wheelers and motocross. I wonder how you sustained a spinal cord injury. Drifting in the snow looked fun though." This comment officially broke through Scotty's persona. Now, not only was he doxing his critics, he was also making fun of said person with that information for being a paraplegic. Multiple times, Scotty had gone out of his way to make videos with his disabled sibling, Wesley, wherein one of the main focuses was statements about how bad it was to marginalize people with disabilities. "Stop using the R word," he writes. "Here's why. Most people use that word to describe them or someone else being stupid, without stopping to consider how harmful and hurtful the word is to those with intellectual disabilities." The top comment on this post reads, "We made the right guy famous, people." But just a few months later, Scotty's actions had now totally betrayed the image he built for himself. And it wasn't just his haters who had a reason, but also his own fans. This betrayal of his public image would ultimately cost him his sponsorship with Rise as well. Effective immediately, Rise is no longer affiliated with or represented by the individual involved in recent controversy. We are aware of comments made by this prior affiliate that were hurtful and inappropriate towards individuals with physical and mental disabilities. While Scotty had previously maintained silence on this issue, now that it was affecting his bottom line, he knew he had to say something. And with one of the main criticisms against him being that his beliefs were ultimately performative, it's not a surprise that this video was seen as more of the same.
For days now, I have been lying to myself, saying things like, I'm a good person. I've done a lot of good for the world. It's all bullshit deflection to keep me from taking responsibility for my own actions. I've built this entire platform on inclusivity and kindness. And I lost sight of that in my own ego.
Scotty's empty sniffs, deep breaths, and watery eyes ultimately did very little to convince the audience that he was sorry for his actions. This is so performative, bro. Get on with it. Just a theater kid with a fitness platform. Stop deleting comments, buddy. You didn't even explain what you did. You only apologized because your sponsors are dropping you. While I don't think that Scotty completely faked his emotions, it seems like he's coming from a place of realizing that he's overstepped his boundaries. And now he regrets it. He wants to go back to being the silly TikTok fitness guy as soon as possible. If his apology had been more convincing, that actually could have happened. But once people dug into his past, they began realizing that with or without this event taking place, his career was probably doomed from the start. While the internet was eating Scotty alive, he posted a new message to his Discord server. He first reiterates his apology, but then states that the situation had earned him some real-life consequences. He claims a few people had showed up at his family's home, forcing them to skip town. Meanwhile, internet sleuths began digging into Scotty's past. They quickly found that Scotty wasn't his real name. In April 2025, he had filed to change his name from Matthew Scott Kramer to Scotty Knox Flynn. Now, this wasn't exactly something he was hiding. He had posted an explanation for what happened long before the controversy began.
Some of you already know this, but my parents suck. My mother abandoned me when I was 14 and she was a drug addict. I met my father one time, who was also a drug addict, and he didn't know my name. I haven't spoken to my mother in about 16 years. I still carry a lot of with me from my childhood. The abandonment issues, generational trauma, and the same last name. Now, I'm getting married on September 20th of this year, 2025. But I don't want to give my wife that same last name.
Seems simple enough, right? Well, this video is from July of 2025, but as I said before, he filed for his name change in April. But you could excuse this with the fact that the process was only finalized in July, and maybe he only said he was about to go do it for the sake of a punchier TikTok. He then goes on to talk about his time in the army, and how it informed his name change.
Scotty is not my real name. Story time! When I was mobilizing to Afghanistan, I got a chance to train with some pretty cool guys. And the training kind of sucked. So to keep morale high, I did a bunch of stupid accents. One of their favorites was the Scottish accent that I do, which led them to start calling me Scotsman, and then Scots, and then Scotty. So Scotty stuck. I learned a lot about myself in Afghanistan, who I was and who I wanted to be. And since then, I have been Scotty.
On the surface, this explanation seems pretty believable, until you remember that his middle name was already Scott. Wouldn't that be a much more typical reason to call him Scotty, rather than the fact he did a Scottish accent while deployed? People began to seriously question the reason for his name change, thinking there could have been something he was hiding. Sleuths managed to find his marriage license, which revealed that he had been honest about his marriage happening soon. His past also seemed to check out. Court records showed that nearly 2 decades ago, his mother had filed a protective order request against who is assumed to be his stepfather. There's also a separate report of Scotty's mom being charged for domestic assault and battery. Once again, checks out with his past. After this protective order was filed by his mother, Scotty's own records only really start in 2013, when he got a charge of forcible entry, which was promptly dismissed for unknown reasons. Just so we don't have to revisit this, there are actually 3 other instances of forcible entry charges, at least one of which is apparently tied to an eviction procedure, and one of them also involves someone else who shares a last name with Scotty, probably a brother of his. Then, in 2014, we have a marriage license application related to his first wife. 3 years later, Scotty filed for a protective order against one of his brothers, although it was dismissed for insufficient evidence. Finally, in April 2020, Scotty filed for a protective order against his wife, which resulted in her having to surrender all firearms to law enforcement, and it was promptly succeeded by a positive drug test from her and divorce proceedings. At this point, Scotty and his ex-wife had 2 kids, so a lengthy custody battle ensued, which resulted in a joint custody arrangement where Scotty kept the kids for the most part, while his ex-wife had weekly visitation rights. As of February 2026, there are still somewhat regular updates to the case, and it seems that the kids have had what is called a guardian ad litem since October 2025. I should preface this with the obvious disclaimer that I'm not a lawyer, and I also have an IQ of 65, but from my general understanding, a guardian ad litem is when a custody battle develops to the point where the court appoints someone to advocate on the behalf of the kids so that neither parent gets away with mixing their personal interests in what's best for the child. Lastly, there was just one outlier in the records, a lawsuit filed by V-Shred against Scotty, but apparently it's related to intellectual property, so in all likelihood, this was just a glorified copyright strike from V-Shred on Scotty as retaliation for making fun of him so much. Legally speaking, there wasn't that much on Scotty, but fortunately for his haters, people went way beyond the call of duty. John Dorsey, the owner of the Instagram account goob_u2, utilized the Oklahoma Open Records Act to request records of Scotty's employment at the police department. Scotty's legitimacy as a creator hinged very hard on the professions he spoke about occupying, from being a soldier to his supposed bounty hunter career, to him being a first responder, aura farming as a cop, being a firefighter. All of these things really helped to build the image people had of him online. So if someone managed to find out that his time as a police officer officer wasn't all he had cracked it up to be, it would definitely do some serious damage to his reputation. Now, it's extremely important to note that what I'm about to go over are allegations made against Scotty that have been officially documented by the police. The fact that they've been documented does not mean that they're confirmed, and I don't personally endorse them. But for full context in the story, it's important that we cover them. During his time as a cop, he was placed at Tulsa Community College. Starting in December 2020 onwards, he allegedly made several statements that were deemed as, quote, conduct unbecoming of an officer. These include talking about sticking it in the butt of a newscaster, sharing information about his past sexual experiences with his ex-girlfriend, speaking to the college staff about cheating on his wife 35 times, trying to find one of the students on Facebook once he noticed that she wasn't wearing a bra, telling a student life employee he was going to start an OF account, and lastly, making inappropriate statements about a female student. By mid-2021, an internal investigation was being conducted on him as a complaint about his behavior had already been made. So, a lieutenant began to keep track and take notes of the things Scotty said. Establishing that this was a consistent pattern was easy, as according to this lieutenant, he personally heard Scotty talking about getting head, and when an attempt was made to intervene and counsel him against that sort of behavior while on the job, he was found to, quote, not take counseling very well, shut down, and pout. A few days after this lieutenant's interview, Scotty's captain was also interviewed, where he said that although Scotty was capable of being a good cop, he had a big ego and was constantly trying to impress everyone around him, whether it be with his body language or his voice, to the point where it became insubordination. In his own words, young Officer Kramer came to us in September and has a lot of rough edges. Probably the biggest issue is his inability to not talk. When directly asked about these complaints about his behavior, Scotty apparently denied all of them, except that he had previously admitted to having cheated on his ex-wife, which led to their marriage falling apart. He then went on to claim he was offended by being asked these questions and impulsively quit his job, which seems to confirm that he doesn't take criticism very well and will react emotionally, as was described by his captain. Interestingly enough, while he was quitting, Scotty is recorded as saying, "I appreciate you being professional, and there has not been a breakdown in communication, but I'm not going to go through with allegations of that. I've dealt with those types of allegations, as you know. I'm not looking towards building a pattern of allegations, so no thank you." There were a few more interesting pieces of information coming from these documents, such as his captain saying that Scotty was never career military, as his deployments were as a contractor, although at this point it was unclear what his job as a contractor was. Due to how many videos Scotty had posted talking about being deployed to Afghanistan, or posts of him in military clothes, some people immediately saw this report and assumed it meant that Scotty had lied about having served at all. I'd personally say that Scotty does go a bit overboard with the tactical LARPing on TikTok. He plays fast and loose with the truth, often interspersing references to having been in the military for 11 years, with recent photos of him taking part in the Oklahoma Governor's 20 marksman competition. This does not mean he doesn't have any legit experience working with or for the military. It just means that he carefully exaggerates just as much as he can without losing the plausible deniability of having lied. If you were to call him out on this, he'd easily be able to say that due to him showing the competition certificate, he wasn't intentionally misleading anyone. But obviously, the context of the video at least suggests this was some kind of military thing. The only other piece of information that's interesting here is that his lieutenant described that besides these odd behaviors from Scotty, he also reportedly had poor ethics when it came to actual police work. And keep in mind here, Scotty is referred to as Kramer. We were on a call. It came out as an armed robbery at Home Depot, so an officer and Kramer got in a vehicle. And it was reported later that Kramer went out of jurisdiction, and then he told that officer, "Oh, just lie and say that I couldn't go back on a one-way street." In another incident, he tried to intimidate someone by the way he was acting, by the way he was standing. He was trying to intimidate, almost like he was trying to provoke them to do something. He has issues with lurking and trying to eavesdrop on conversations, especially if the doors are closed. He eavesdrops frequently if there's closed-door meetings. With this information making its way to the public, a few other claims were also made, all of which were reported on by Runvis. For example, there was one allegation from a jiu-jitsu instructor that Scotty had threatened her. "I'm a female jiu-jitsu instructor that helps out with women's self-defense seminars, and to test me, he held me down by my throat and told me he could kill me right then, and it would be easy for him to get away with it because of his police background. He told me multiple times with his military background that he can have me killed and no one would know he was connected." This instructor would also go on to say that Scotty had a history of being fired or forced to resign from jobs, which seems to line up with the previous claim about him leaving the police department as soon as he was questioned on his inappropriate comments. The image Scotty had built for himself was now officially basically past the point of no return, as Runvis's most popular Instagram post about the issue now had almost 170,000 likes.
AK Fitness, here I am again. Or should I call you Mr. Safe Space?
With his past mostly dug through, at this point you would think the controversy would be over. But as it turns out, in the process of Scotty attempting to walk back from the situation, he may have told another lie. Remember that Discord message where Scotty said that people were coming to his house, putting his family in danger? Runvis Coaching came forward once more to address this claim from Scotty, stating that his friend had requested public records to see if Scotty had actually called the police about this issue. What they found was that Scotty had called them, but he made no mention of anyone showing up at his house.
I'm calling to request a increased patrol at my home address. I'm heading out of town, and I'm a social media content creator with almost like 10 million followers. I'm receiving death threats, and I have family at home. I'd like to... Okay.
Now, if somebody showed up to my house in a threatening way, I would call the police and I would mention that.
People were immediately skeptical of this entire thing because why didn't he mention that people had been to his house to the police themselves? And furthermore, if he felt his family was in danger, why did he leave? Wouldn't it have made more sense to stay and protect them? To be totally fair to Scotty, the phone call was made on January 27th, while the Discord announcement was made on January 29th. So it is possible that someone showed up at his house after the phone call, but before the message, sometime within that 2-day window. At this point, he had yet to provide any proof of anyone showing up at his house, but we'll keep this point in mind for later. Runvis also points out that Scotty is not and has never been a registered bounty hunter, meaning he was either operating illegally or this was simply untrue as well. He then accused Scotty and his wife of being swingers, which is a claim that I've seen no proof for. At this point, Runvis had positioned himself as Scotty's arch nemesis, and more people began reaching out with their own experiences. One of the more hilarious claims was regarding Scotty's time as a fireman. He claims that the reason he wears a hat in every video is because of an incident which burned his scalp. But as Runvis points out, the real explanation is simply that he is bald.
So why I wear a hat all the time? So I had second and third degree burns all over my scalp. I was out of work for like 3 months until I could go back. I went back to work and like legit a month later I had a knee surgery. So
no, but seriously, why would you tell such a tale that's very easily disproven? Does this look like a scalp that's so badly burned you have to wear a hat all the time? It's the same all the way around. He's literally just bald.
With enough of these rumors festering, Scotty finally decided to make a proper response to go over everything that had been claimed, starting with him doxing his haters, which he outright denied.
Starting out, did I respond to a hateful comment with hate and making fun of somebody who is a paraplegic? Yes. For that, Cody, I am sorry. Did I receive a comment stating that I look like the gay uncle from the Ozark television show? Yep. Which is true and objectively hilarious. And from that comment, I made a video where people have redacted information to make it seem as if I have doxed this person. I gave this person's name, profile photo, place of employment, and how long he worked there, state that he lived in, birth month, birth year, and 3 random first names as possible associates. All of those things were on his public Facebook profile. The things that I did give in the video that were not public information, I got off of Google, not because I used to be a bounty hunter. That information was the last 4 digits of his phone number and the name of the street that he was last listed at residing at.
While it is probably true that most of the information he got was from Google, the same applies to most of the information people got about him. They simply searched up his name and started digging from there. Additionally, Scotty did directly publish all of the information he found to his millions of followers, undoubtedly raising the risk of someone doing something crazy with that information to this random commenter. His post was originally made to his TikTok, which has 4 million followers. He then reposted it to Instagram, where he has 2 million, and then Threads, where he has 140,000. This brings the exposure up to at least 6 million people or more who could have seen this guy's private information. It wasn't some lapse in judgment, it was deliberate. On top of that, while he tries to play off the bounty hunter thing as a joke,
the things that I did give in the video that were not public information, I got off of Google, not because I used to be a bounty hunter.
Based on the original video, he was being serious.
And something else you may not know
is that I'm a former bounty hunter.
But this isn't the only dishonest thing he does in his response. Let's take a look at how he addresses the claim about people showing up to his house.
And most of this started as in response to the ICE video that I made, and whenever that video went live, I did start getting death threats. And I've gotten death threats before, so I handled it the same way I did last time, where I called in a watch order on my home. Usually it's just internet trolls. When I called in that watch order, I was in the airport about to step on the plane to go to New York for a charity organization.
As many people pointed out, this is true. He did call the police. But what he neglects to mention in this video is that he stated on his Discord that people had already showed up to his house, which is kind of a strange thing to leave out here. And of course, he makes sure to humble brag that he was going to a charity event instead of just saying he was going out of town.
For a charity organization.
Now, after addressing these things, he moves on to talk about the findings in the police documents, as well as the rumors that he had committed some kind of sex offense.
People started throwing around allegations, and what they're referring to is that 9 years ago, in my previous marriage, I had an affair with a woman who had previously been dating a cop. They just broke up. I had 3 consensual sexual encounters with this woman, once in her new apartment when I helped her move, once at my home while my wife was at work. I was a bad husband. And the third at a part-time job an hour outside of town when I was working security at a construction yard as an off-duty law enforcement officer. Afterwards, she told me that she still loved her ex-boyfriend, that she was going to get back with him and tell him that we had slept together. The day after that happened, I was asked to leave the department. I was fired, which makes sense because it's a cardinal sin to sleep with another cop's girl. Again, I sucked.
While this story definitely could be true, it once again reeks of the humble bragging he usually does. I mean, if he was involved with another cop's girlfriend, wouldn't that be brought up in all of the HR interviews conducted about his poor conduct? Isn't that literally the kind of thing human resources exist for? Besides this, he is at least being consistent in denying the claims that he was inappropriate at his job, which is something he also did while being interviewed by his lieutenant. However, I'm not sure how cheating on your wife with another cop's girlfriend gets mistaken for cheating on your wife 35 times, which is what was actually claimed in the documents. He continues.
Not just because of that, but because I was 22 years old and lacked the critical thinking skills that it takes to be a good police officer. I drove 130 miles an hour everywhere I went because, again, 22 years old and I had a cop car. If I got into pursuits or aided other departments in pursuits, I would cut off other cops to try to be a hero. I would drive 70 miles an hour down dirt roads. At one point, I actually ran a person off the road and didn't even realize it until 3 hours later when he called the department and was gunning for my badge. I got written up all the time for these things.
Once again, if all of this is true and he got written up about it all the time, why would this not be in the documents? I don't think he was in any pursuits or running anyone off of dirt roads without realizing it. This is just another case of him trying to sound like his life is a TV show. He was a glorified security guard in Oklahoma. I don't think a lot of hot pursuits were going on at Tulsa Community College. It really confuses me on why he's using these weird lies as examples of why he's a bad cop, instead of the mutually verified claims made by his captain and lieutenant. He then abruptly ends his explanation about his time in the police and moves on to the bounty hunter thing.
Now I moved down to Texas and I became a bail enforcement agent. A lot of people are saying that that's false. I was sitting in the office one day, learning how to do my job, and my boss came in and handed me 2 certification cards. One was for private investigating, one was for bail enforcement agent. And I said, "Sir, I didn't take these exams. How did I get these?" And he said, "Stop asking questions, son." So I did, because I wanted to keep my job. After a while working there, I heard through the grapevine that the woman I had an affair with was alleging sex. And as you can imagine, my heart fell into my stomach. But as somebody with a background in law enforcement, albeit brief, I knew that if she had made those allegations and made a report, that there would be an investigation and that we would get through that. And because it didn't happen, I wasn't worried about it. But there was never such an investigation nor report. So I moved on with my life.
It's odd how he quickly glides through this topic without showing any evidence he was ever a legally certified bounty hunter. I was sort of expecting him to throw something up on screen or physically hold up something that could verify he was, at one point, certified. While I can't say that he for sure wasn't one, I don't understand why he wouldn't just produce some kind of evidence or receipt that he was. It can't be that hard. His next stop during this response regards his time in the military as a contractor.
I've seen a lot of rumors going around that somehow I'm stolen valor, that I spent 11 years in the Oklahoma Army National Guard and I never deployed. Well, that's true. I never deployed with the Oklahoma Army National Guard. I deployed with a company called Triple Canopy. And here's a video of me in Kabul with a geolocation on it. My job title in Afghanistan was Armed Guard Level 2. I was a gate guard. Entry Control Point, ECP, and sometimes I was in machine gun towers, and those were even cardboarded up.
glorified security guard.
This is probably the part of his response which contains the most verifiable truth, and you can almost see how he gets bolder when talking about it. Most, if not all of what he said here has receipts, even if he doesn't admit to playing his time in Afghanistan up as if he was an actual soldier in some of his TikTok posts. But it appears he has directly lied about his military service as a means of securing sponsorships in private. One person that came forward in the midst of this entire situation was former Fat Guy Fitness. He's a content creator who made a post detailing his various grievances with Scotty, as they were friends very early in Scotty's TikTok career. But the most important thing he reveals is this message, wherein Scotty is messaging a company to secure a sponsorship. In his qualifications, he states, "I'm a father, firefighter, paramedic student, and combat veteran." This obviously implies that he has been in combat. Now, it's possible that he just forgot to mention his active firefight experience in his response video because he just didn't think it was important, but I think the more likely explanation is that he was lying to secure a sponsorship. After this, he circles back to his time as a cop in Tulsa, and at least here, he outright admits that some of the things claimed were true, bringing up him talking to other cops about fellatio or trying to get some college girl's Facebook. Although he says that this was pretty common behavior for cops. He doesn't mention the claims he was eavesdropping or the claim he was trying to intimidate and provoke people, but he does say that he made an HR complaint about his captain and his lieutenant, and he puts a long string of text on screen. Although I can't personally confirm that this HR complaint is legit and dated to before the complaints about his behavior started, it's worth remembering that the complaints about him started in December 2020, and it came not just from his captain and lieutenant, but also from fellow coworkers and TCC staff. So I highly doubt that this was a concerted effort from a few higher-ups who were out to get him. Regardless, this is what his complaint said. I would like to start this narrative by stating that I do not believe the CTC Police Department is inherently a bad place to work. However, during my time at Metro Campus, under the supervision of my lieutenant and my captain, I have found myself in a toxic, unhealthy, awkward, and unbearable work environment. As I come into work, I barely speak to my teammates in the Metro campus as a result of this feeling. I am treated differently as an outcast or unequal. My police officer counterparts do not respect nor speak to me for reasons I do not know. On multiple occasions, I have been talked down to by the lieutenant. I have heard her speaking about me negatively and derogatorily to someone on the phone with her office door shut when she thought that no one could hear. I have heard the captain speak to the lieutenant in his office saying things such as, "He's a savage pig in a round world. Continue to write down all issues. That way, when and if he goes to the chief's office and complains about being picked on, we can say, no, here's why." Metro campus is an island, and all the other campuses can fall into the ocean for all I care. In this HR complaint, he is indirectly confirming that he was indeed eavesdropping on his captain and lieutenant. But beyond this, there's just no way to verify that these things were said about him or not. After this, he complains about the department's lack of commitment to certain limitations of his work hours due to him being a full-time father of two, and that although the captain was more cooperative, his lieutenant went out of her way to inconvenience him whenever she could, even in small ways, like making snide remarks towards him or giving him incomplete instructions to tasks that would make him take longer. Honestly, it could be that he's telling the truth here. It's not as if Scotty is the only slightly dysfunctional person who managed to become a cop, but ultimately, there's no way we can tell who was more in the wrong here. The rest of the video has a lot of him retracing and giving extra details about his time as a cop or his time in deployment. So I'm going to summarize the parts that aren't related to that, as we've already gone over that stuff. First, he shows pictures of the burns he suffered as a fireman, as well as the disability checks he got for the burns. And although this stuff is helpful to establish the severity of his medical issues during that time, it doesn't make his story about why he wears a cap any less cap. He probably does just wear a hat because he's bald, and I don't blame him for that. The day the Reaper comes for me, get ready for a whole new line of beanies and hats because I'm gonna be needing them. Secondly, he addresses the claim that his coaching business is a scam, saying that he's always been open about having other people do the actual coaching in his business because he can't personally handle every client. Because I haven't seen any credible claims that he's gone out of his way to mislead people about the nature of his coaching, I'm inclined to say that he's not actually scamming people, because if he were, it would have already come out given how much people hate this guy. In his response, Scotty mentions that people have been calling him V-Shred 2.0 because of this, but it's not as if his criticisms of V-Shred were focused on the mere fact that V-Shred sells coaching, so I honestly don't think that's applicable to him. Lastly, he talks about his public wedding registries, where he sets things up so fans of his can send him donations and gifts, which is something that some people took issue with, describing him as an e-beggar. However, I think think, especially in this day and age, everyone who's a content creator has a decent brunt of their online existence revolve around donos and things of that sort. So unless you're going hard in the paint and sympathy baiting people into donating to you, I don't think it's fair to turn this into an issue. What is interesting, and perhaps the most fitting send-off to this response, is that he makes fun of people who were fixating on trying to get him to shave off his huge mustache, claiming that he had already shaved it a week and a half prior of his own accord, and not because of anything that was happening online. But as per a tweet shared by Runvis, this was provably false, which just brings us back to Scotty's tendency to lie about small, pointless things.
So I had already kind of pointed this out when I said that Scotty still had his mustache in his apology video, but he said in this response video here that he shaved it a week and a half ago. Well, here's even more proof of him lying about absolutely stupid things, because he still has the duster when he is at a presentation on the 29th. So why are we lying about the date on which you shaved your mustache, Scotty?
In May of 2025, Dr. K, who I would describe as a therapy and mental health YouTuber, did an interview with Scotty. And despite the fact that this took place long before any of the controversies, there's a point in the interview where Dr. K manages to break through the discipline is everything coach persona of Scotty and draws some real sincerity out of him.
Yeah, but the valuation of yourself doesn't carry weight. I can't value myself enough to feel better about who I am. My value is not intrinsic. It's not something I get to decide. It's something that is given to me based on who I am and what I do for others. I believe that. I know that's not a great look, but I believe that.
It's ironic that he couches this admission with, "It's not a great look." Seemingly everything for Scotty is partly about how it looks for others, which is why he so frequently resorts to socially engineering how other people see him. The only problem with that is, when you lie that frequently to impress people, it doesn't matter how small the lies are, you will get caught. When you're uncomfortable with yourself because of whatever internal issues you may have, people tend to strongly project how they want to be perceived, because they're insecure. But this shouldn't come off as a surprise to anyone. If you keep up with the commentary coverage of online fitness figures, you'll quickly find out that a lot of these guys are screwed up in one way or another. It just comes down to how willing they are to be honest about their flaws. Scotty's latest TikTok was posted 10 days after his response, wherein he seems to hint at his own personal shortcomings, but he essentially chalks it up to, well, we all fail sometimes.
I hope that none of us, or all of us, are judged by the actions of our weakest moment, but rather by the strength we show if and when we are given a second chance. Life lessons and wisdom are purchased through failures. You're allowed to fail.
He ends the video by drinking a Red Bull. Meanwhile, Runvis posted this.
It feels nice exposing the lies, but it kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth, so I had to rinse it out with a little Rise energy.
I've been Turkey Tom. Thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.
I've heard it 1,000 times before, and it's just not that funny anymore.